Welcome back to Holistic Developer. I'm hoping you're having an amazing time. I want to share with you that you must listen to if you are commuting to work, or you want to clean up the house, or just chilling and want to listen to something interesting. And I hope you don't have to spend so much time commuting to work like I do. So from time to time it takes me from an hour to 2 hours to get to work. So you can imagine from an hour and a half to 4 hours for me to take to go to work and come back, depending on traffic. So I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts, and here in this video I'll be sharing with you my top 8 podcasts that I really enjoy. And these podcasts are particular tech podcasts. And they are not in any particular order. I really enjoy all of them. And I will start with the first one, which is This Developer's Life. And I'll read the synopsis of this so I make sure that I'm not butchering what is the podcast about. But the host of this podcast are two. It's Scott Hasselman, which I'm sure all of you heard of it. He's really well known in the tech community. And his co-host is Rob Connery. And what they're talking on that podcast is a podcast about developers and their lives. And this is actually the very first podcast that I've listened ever. I haven't listened to anything else before that, and it was really good. So it's a podcast that came out a few years ago, and I actually listened to all of their episodes, and I actually listened multiple times to some of them, and they're really, really good. And they are kind of on the same premises as This American's Life. So it's kind of the same theme regarding the developer's life. The next one is also from Scott Hasselman. It's Hensel Minutes. So I probably didn't pronounce his name correctly. It's Henselman. And Hensel Minute podcast is basically interviews that are done by Scott Henselman with tech movers and tech shakers in this industry, right? The next podcast that I really enjoy, and I listened to it probably for the last 6 months, and I'm trying to catch up to all the episodes, is the Developer's Tea, and it's hosted by Jonathan Cottrell. And at this moment, they have over 13 million downloads. And the part that it's so compelling about this podcast, they are really short ones. So if you're going to a walk, or having just a tea. So, right, it's a podcast that you should be able to listen while you're drinking your cup of tea or coffee, right? So it's about 10 minutes podcasts, so short podcast. And what he's trying to do in this podcast is to help driven developers connect to their ultimate purpose and excel at their work so they can positively impact the people they influence. It's really nicely written, and you can imagine that he's covering everything from how to learn to code, how to stay motivated, how to focus, and many, many other things that I really enjoy. So I definitely recommend to add it to your must listen to. The next one is pretty new. It has only 4 episodes, but it's really good. I really like it. And it's actually, the host is one well-known YouTuber, Mayuko, and she's really good. And her podcast, it's If Else. And the synopsis of the podcast is our career, our tech career, it's really packed with a lot of choices that we need to make. And basically her premises is that if else, what do you do? And the hope is there that they are there to help you make smart decisions. Next one, coding blocks. This is a funny one, and it's pretty lengthy. Practically their episodes are like at least an hour, something like that, and they're hilarious and at the same time really informative. So there are 3 guys, and it's Alan Underwood, Joe Zack, and Michael Outlaw. And they cover everything from best practices in programming, design patterns, what else? Coding performance, and so many other things. I really find a lot of useful information from this podcast, so definitely recommend it. Next one is soft skills engineering, and by now you probably can tell that this is close to me, to my my purpose, right? My passion is that the soft skills, they matter. Regardless of what you're doing, the soft skills make or break your career. So they have weekly episodes where they answer questions from the users, and they address topics like pay raise, hiring, firing, technical leadership, and so on. And this podcast is hosted by David Smith and Jamison Dance, and they also sometimes can be hilarious. I actually listened to a podcast of theirs today, an episode, and it was about feedback. How do you give feedback? And it was a really interesting one. And at moments they were making jokes, and the next moment they actually bring valuable information and advice on how to deal with certain situations. The next one, it's hosted by one of my favorite tech people. I followed that person multiple times, many years, and not literally followed. It's just, I've been at conferences, watched his courses, his videos, and now I'm listening to his podcast, and it's the CS50 Podcast, hosted by David L. Mullen, and his colleague, or his co-host, is Colton Ogden. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, but they are both at Harvard. So David Mullen is one of the professors at Harvard who's teaching computer science. And what they are focusing each week, the episode is focused on the latest news in tech as well as computer science in general. The last one in the list, but not the least favorite one, is Ladybug, and it's hosted by three ladies, and probably again I won't be pronouncing the names correctly. It's Ali Spittle, Emma Whitkin, and Kelly Vaughan. I apologize for butchering your names, but your podcast is amazing. It's also covering a lot of stuff, a lot of soft skills, a lot of what it takes to be in the tech industry, talking at conferences, and so many other topics, which I recommend you checking it out. And the last one that I still want to mention, the one that I've been listening religiously recently. I have probably listened in the last month to at least 100 episodes, and that is Women in Tech, hosted by Esprit de Four. She's amazing. She brings together a lot of women in tech and from different walks of life, from investment, product owners, CEOs, developers, and so many other branches in this tech industry. And they share what they learned, what are their challenges, and what are their favorite books, how they overcoming challenges, how they got into tech, and so many other questions that are really inspirational and motivational at the same time. So whenever I'm listening to that podcast, I'm always wanting to do more, be able to do more, and accomplish more. Hopefully you found this 8 podcasts that I recommended appealing, and you'll check them out anytime you are commuting somewhere, either driving or riding in a bus, or just biking, or maybe actually when you're running, working out, cleaning out around the house. There's plenty of time where you can actually multitask. This is a case where you can multitask. While you're driving, you can listen, or you're running, you can listen. So I think that's something that is worth trying out. So I'm also looking forward to learn new and find new podcasts. So please feel free to suggest your favorite podcasts. So you can do your top one or as many podcasts as you want. Feel free to link them below. And a fun fact is the Coding Blocks podcast that was included in this list. It was a podcast that I actually learned from one of you. It was one of your recommendations. So thank you for sharing that information with me. And I'm looking forward to learn new ones and find new ones. So as always, I'm wishing you happy engineering and talk to you next time. Bye bye.